Yeah, Facebook seemed to be playing with us tonight, but we are determined to um, to have a show. Welcome to all of you. Welcome back. Please come back. Please come back. We seem to be having some problems with Facebook here tonight, but we are on. Today at the Square of the Revolution, there was a demonstration demonstration on the question of the cash grants at the Square of the Revolution today. And some of you were out there at the demonstration on the question of the cash grants, the cash transfers, we prefer to call them, not cash grants because nobody's granting you anything. It's transferring wealth, your own wealth that was created by your labor, your own patrimony to you. Christmas is coming, and the government, of course, did make a promise that the people, the Guyanese people, would get this cash transfer for Christmas. And of course, they went on to say that if people behave themselves, they would get this cash transfer. And we on this side of the aisle is saying, no. The first thing is that the money for the cash transfers does not belong to the government. And we are not the children. And so we have to behave ourselves before we get the cash grants. That is an obscenity, and it's a disrespect for the people of the country. And secondly, that it is not for the government to decide by itself without consultation as to when and how that money is going to be transferred to people. Thirdly, governments and political parties that are in government must keep their promises to the people. They must keep their promises to the people. And so we are saying Christmas is coming. Money is swirling all over the place. And this cash transfer was promised to the people of Guyana. And so the government has a responsibility to ensure that they fulfill their promise to the people. And part of what we have to do in the opposition is to force the government. We know the history of the government when it comes to cash transfer is one of dishonesty. When Professor Thomas first introduced the idea to Guyana 9 years ago, the PPP was blunt in saying that they do not believe in it. That if they were to give the money to people, people would spend the money out and drink the money out. And so they didn't believe in it. And I do think that the PPP still does not believe in cash transfer. They don't. So let's start there. The PPP didn't believe in it in 2016 when Barrett Jack Dio was the front man saying it can't work, that Clive Thomas is crazy, that the WPA is crazy. And then Minister Vikram Bharat, more recently, after they gave one cash transfer, Minister Bharat said, it's a failed system. So whether it's in 2016 or 2025, the PPP has demonstrated by its own words that it does not believe in the idea of cash transfers. It doesn't. So we have to start there. And so if you don't believe in an idea and you implement it, it means that you are doing it because you feel that it will bring some short-term benefits for you. So here in 2025, earlier this year, they implemented cash transfers, cash in the form of $100,000. and they're implementing something they don't believe in. So this is not something that they did out of conviction. This is something that was done out of expediency. We don't like it, but we feel that if we do it, we're going to get some votes from it. And so that is why they did that first cash transfer. And that is why they didn't have a plan for it. Remember, when they first came out with it, they said they will give it to each household. Then within 24 hours, they changed it and said, we'll give it to each individual. And then we said, who's the individual? 18 years and over. So if you're below 18 years, out you go. So the PPP never had a plan for cash transfer because they never believed in it. They never believed in it. And that is the first thing, the first point we have to put on the table. If you don't believe in something, then you don't care to do it properly. And there are lots of questions regarding that first cash transfer. They call it cash grant. We are saying there's a difference between a grant and a transfer. A grant is I'm granting you something. I'm doing you a favor. A transfer is a transfer of your money from one place to another place. Basically transferring money, your own money, from the government coffers into your bank account or into your hands. And that is why we're insisting to call it cash transfer and not cash grants. And they did it and they excluded rather than including people. We liked the household because the household would include everybody. It would include the children, 7, 8 years old, little water baby. They're all part of households. So we liked the household because the household was more inclusive. The individual included some individuals, but excluded other individuals. Each individual belonged to a household. We have explained on this program many times. You can have one house, one roof, and you have 3, 4 different families living under the roof. Each of them cooking their own pot. We prefer calling the household a pot. So we felt that the household would include people. Everybody would be included. Nobody would be excluded. Individuals, you say from 18 years and over, you're including 18 years and over, and you're excluding below 18 years. And that is the problem we had with the individual construct. But they went ahead with the individual construct, and they pegged it to 600,000 individuals. We are yet to be told whether all 600,000 individuals picked up their cash transfer. I didn't. And the question, what happened to my $100,000? Where is it? Is it in somebody else's pocket? Has it gone back to the government? Am I going to get a call? Say, come, your cash transfer is here. Bring your ID and come and pick it up. I don't know. We don't know. So there is a lot that is wrong with the rollout of the first cash transfer. And that happened because the PPP doesn't believe in it. They do not believe in cash transfer. So when they dangled the second cash transfer, was to get votes. Now they are in office. They have decided to hell with us. And they're telling us, you little children, if you behave yourself, you will get a freck. We reject that. We are not their children. We are not their children. And we are saying that cash transfers have been used in many parts of the world to funnel resources to people from a windfall. The money we are getting from oil is a windfall. This is money that we didn't plan for 10 years ago. And we are saying now we have that windfall. We're going to divide part of it for government to indirectly funnel resources to you through roads, through bridges, through school buildings. And then we're going to take a little part of it and channel it directly to you, because the windfall is above and beyond what we had before. I remember as a small boy, my mother would send money for us from America. And, you know, at Christmas time, she sent a little bit more, or Easter time, or what have you. And my auntie would separate the money for food and money for clothes and money for other things. And then she would give us our own money, whether it's 50 cents, $1, whatever the case may be. That's we money to do what we want. You want a fancy yachting boots that they couldn't afford. But here is my chance now to buy a yachting boots on my own. And my auntie could continue to spend the rest of the money on food and other things. And so this is the idea. And if you have a government that is playing hard and fast with this, making us fools, making big promises, and not fulfilling that promise, not fulfilling those promises, then they're taking us for fools. So, sisters and brothers, that is the reason we took to the streets today on this question of the cash transfer. Because it is symbolic of what the government has done generally. It is not only on the question of cash transfer, it's on everything. They feel that this money is their personal money. And they can give it out when they feel. They give it when they feel that we are behaving ourselves. What do they mean by behaving ourselves? And so our people took to the Square of the Revolution this morning in order to demonstrate to the world and to the country and to the government that it's not going to be business as usual. One of the criticisms of the APNU between 2015 and 2020 was that we were not visible enough on the streets. People think that when you say you're going on the streets, it's big marches alone. If the situation arises where there must be big marches, I am going to push for big marches, and I'm sure others would also. But there are times when our presence, even in relatively small numbers, is symbolic. And I think some of our people said to us, you all were not visible on the streets between 2015 and 2020. You all allowed the government to do what it wanted. And some of them punish us. A lot of them punish us by staying home. A lesser number of them voted for win. And so part of going on the streets is a signal to the government and signal to you, our supporters, it will not be business as usual in the way we deal with this government. We are living in an era where we have to operate within a particular framework. My generation lived through the era of revolution. where there was social unrest and governments were brought down. In some cases, in the case of Grenada, for example, people picked up arms. But in other cases, in Dominica, Patrick John was brought down by popular uprising. Each era determines the method of resistance and protest. And it would be wrong for me to sit here and to say, this is the method that must be used. Partly the method that is used is determined by the government itself, to what extent the government is prepared to deny people their rights and their patrimony. Part of the resistance has to be depending on what we have at our disposal. And then part of it has to do with context. What is the context? I would conclude that between 2020 and 2025, we erred on the side of caution. We gave the benefit of the doubt to the government. And the government took advantage of that. And we then appeared weak before our people. And the government was able to pick off a few of us and say, we are troublemakers. And so when it came back to power via a stolen election, and you all know my formula, the PPP won a stolen election in 2025 and in 2020. So having come back as a result of a stolen election, and with the knowledge that they stole the election in 2020, and we treated them as a legitimate government, they have every right to think that that is what's going to happen now. The PPP is a legal government because they were sworn in. So they're legal according to the law. But they're not legitimate because they did not win the election in a fair way. So they're legal but not legitimate. And how do you treat with a legal government that is not legitimate? A legal government that is not legitimate will behave like that. It will impose itself on the masses because it doesn't have the legitimacy that comes freely. So it imposes itself on the masses. It kicks them around. And that is how the PPP governed 2020 to 2025, and of how they've governed since they were installed in office again in September. And how do we, the citizens, certainly those of us who have held back our consent to the government? Government is partly by consent. We, the masses, have to consent to the government that we are giving you the right to govern us. And since half of the population is saying we withhold that right, we withhold that consent from you, any responsible government would say, they're withholding the consent from me, I am going to try to get their consent. In some instances, you're calling the leaders and say, come sit down and let's us talk. We know that you're not giving us your consent, But come in and let's see if we can work something out. That is one approach. But that is not the approach of the PPP. The approach of the PPP is that you don't give us your consent, and we are going to bully you. Or we are going to buy your consent. And that is what we are facing. And the people of Guyana have to decide, either on their own or through their leaders and their organizations. How do you deal with a government that is not legitimate? And so the APNUs decide, look, one of the things an illegitimate government does is that it kicks people around. Treat them like children. Behave yourself. If you behave yourself, you will get this. And we are saying, no, you're not going to do that. And we are going to use the power of the street, which we did today. When you go onto the street, like I said, there are many things you can do with a street demonstration. And there are many kinds of street demonstrations. Some street demonstrations can lead the government to come to the table. Some street demonstrations, as the one today did, was to draw to the government's attention, it will not be business as usual. That is what we are signaling today. And we are signaling that we are hearing our people. One of the concerns of those who either stayed home or voted against the APNU was that we did not show that we were in sync with where their heads were. See, when you're political leaders, you sometimes think you know everything. There are other times when you have to lead from the back. And you have to listen to people. You don't have to agree with them. But if people are saying, you didn't address our concerns effectively. So it is not whether you agree that the government should give cash transfer for Christmas, or you don't agree, or whether they should give it to individuals or they should give it to households. That is not the issue here. The issue here is that the people of Guyana, I think the majority of them, certainly those who support the opposition political parties, are saying that we want this money. The poor people of this country, we want this money. And we have to address that because that's what they're saying. And that is what has taken the coalition to this point. We have our differences on how the cash transfers should be done. We certainly believe that it should be done by law. We certainly believe that it should be done in a structured way. We certainly believe that it must be seen as a supplemental income. Clear case of difference with the PPP. That we are saying to our people, don't see this money as somebody giving you a little freck. See it as money that is going to be used to supplement what you're earning. It's income. The government doesn't want to raise wages. They're saying, you know, if we raise public servants' wages, there'll be inflation and all kinds of things. When they're giving money to themselves, it won't cause inflation. When they take 57% of the budget and give it as infrastructure, infrastructural development as they call it, 57% of 1.3 trillion. And some of it is going to go to building the roads, going to the building, but the majority of it will go into the pocket of the contractors. They don't talk about inflation. But when it comes to public servants' wages, they talk about inflation. 7% and 8% and 9%. So this cash transfer is a means of topping up your salary, supplementing your salary, because this is money that should go. We would prefer the money to go to you in wages and salary. Raise the wage and salary. We said 35% on the campaign trail. The government saying 9%, but we are saying that 26% difference here, you can now get it via the cash transfers. So it's a top up on your salary. If you see it as a handout, a freck, a grant, then you're encouraging them to treat you like children. If you see it as a legitimate entitlement, because you're denied this money so that you can have a living wage, you're denied it. You're denied it by suppressing your wages. So this is a way of this thing supplementing your wage. And that is what we are saying there. It should be a cultural shift in the way we think about these things. And so we are saying it should be structured. But we are saying at Christmas time, poor people don't want to hear but structured. And so they want the money. Because that money, 100,000, we are saying, we think it should be 150,000 because this thing is a stopgap. The government promised it. The last time they give 100,000, we don't know because they haven't done any assessment of the first grant to see whether 100,000 could make a difference to people's lives in a fundamental way. So we are saying, going with their scenario, give 150. It's a stopgap. It's a stopgap thing. 150,000. It will ensure that most poor people have a nice Christmas. We live in a world now where Christmas has become commercialized. People buying gifts and so on. But more than that, we are living in a Guyana where the prices are high. And what it costs to make a good pot, a pepper pot last year, it will cost 3 times that this year. What it costs to make a nice pot of garlic pork, it will take 3-4 times the price of pork gone up. Garlic is a man in the market. So we are saying, given all of that, this $150,000 is not going to put a dent on poverty. But what it will do is ensure that our people get a proper Christmas. Because that 100,000 or 150,000, we are saying a minimum of 150,000. We'll have to stretch. And let me explain why it got to stretch. Because an individual is going to get 150,000. Mother, single parent. She has a 17-year-old daughter living home. And that 17-year-old daughter got a child or 2 children. mommy will get 150,000, but she has children below 18 living in the house, and then she get grandchildren. 4 children below 18. One of them got 2 children, that's grandchildren. So there's 6 more. Plus mommy who get $100,000 from the PPP. The $100,000 got stretched to 4 and 2, 6 and 1, 7. Under the WPA plan, those 7 people would have had access to $1 million because we would have done the household. In fact, more than $1 million, because the daughter with 2 children would be a household. They're all 7 of them in the same house, but it's really 2 households, mommy and the 3. And then the one daughter, 17 years old, with 2 picnic. Our plan would give them $2 million. They may do the calculation and say, well, man, David and Clive Thomas and Ogun say, we can't make the 1 million. This calculation, we feel we can give, as the APNU would have said, about 500,000. So even 500,000 a household would give that house $1 million. As it stands now, with the PPP approach, those 7 people, the mother alone would get 100,000, if it's 100,000 they give in. And if there's a father in the house, it will go up to 200,000. But under the WPA plan, it would be 2 million. Under the APNU plan, it would be $1 million. So we would have preferred it that way. But we are saying Christmas is coming, we ain't get time for that. Give the people something. And so we are saying the calculation, at a minimum, give them $150,000 per person. And at a minimum, say all adults that include those who have their own families. So you bring in the 16-year-old, the 17-year-old that got his or her own family. So you redefine adults from 18 years and over to include those below 18 who have families. Some of them may not have family, but they live on their own. Your mother, you can't afford, your mother can't think, you rent a room. You leave school. Nowadays people leave in school at 16 and start working. Sometimes 15-year-olds start working. So you have to find a way to include people, not to exclude people. And so we are saying that the minimum for this Christmas, if you want to say we are defining adults as 15 years and over, we can live with that. You're going to exclude some still, because there may be some below 15 who have children. But I think if you say 15 years and over, you pull in those 15 to 18-year-old that got families. Easy to do that. And give them $150,000. That's not the solution. That's a one-stop thing. Then you are demonstrating that you care about people. That is what we are proposing. That is what the WPA is proposing, and the APNU is very close to that. The APNU has said $150,000. We in the WPA, we are saying make it from 15 years and over. Make it 15 years and over. So that you bring in that 15 to 18-year-old who got families. And even when they don't have families, they may be living on their own. Mother dead, daddy dead. We have a lot of orphans who got to grow up quick. They live on their own. You're trying to bring more and more people in. And you have to have a mindset that says, I am not giving these people a frack. I'm not doing them a favor. I am basically transferring monies, their money, from our account, the government, to their account. Mr. Jagdeo likes to talk and say, well, we are not raising wages, but we are giving relief. You don't have to pay for water. You don't have to pay for this. You don't have to pay for that. That's a legitimate model. He's correct. That's a model that you may not give it in wages, but you give it in subsidy. Well, the cash transfer is an addition to that model. You may not give it in wages. You may not give it in subsidy, or you may give it in subsidy. But now you're giving it as a supplement to the wages, because those subsidies are supplements. But if you look at those subsidies, the subsidies don't shift the needle as far as getting people out of poverty. So the cash transfer is an added subsidy. But this time we are saying, make it as structured. You get big people at Christmas time planning their life based on this thing, this cash transfer. And you tell anybody if they behave. And so we are saying that let us begin to govern this country properly. They always say all the opposition do is criticize. But now we are saying we're not just criticizing. We are putting a plan on the table. If I were the president of this country and faced with this situation, I will call in Terence Campbell. I will call in Azzeddine Mohammed. Or if you don't want to sit down with it, let Azzeddine send somebody else. But I would call in an Amanza and sit down around a table. And say that this is a situation that affects all of us. And this is a stopgap thing. If the government say, man, we can't afford 150. We can afford 125. And the opposition may say, well, all right, 125, but you will have to lower it from 18 years to 15 years. And sit down as big people, as responsible people, and agree to help your people. If there was such a meeting of minds, I will advise Campbell, my parliamentary leader, Sheikh Alian, because he deserves a Sheikh An, for calling in the representatives of the people and to say, let us come to a consensus on this thing, because this thing is causing all kinds of problems in our country because people are depending on this money. If I were the PPP, that's what I would do. But we are showing that the PPP is not that matured. If the PPP were to call for such a meeting of minds, I would vote to send my leader. And I'm sure that the political parties in the APNU, the members of the APNU parliamentary delegation, would vote to send our leader to such a meeting. Whether it's Terence Campbell, that's the parliamentary leader, or Aubrey North, that's the APNU leader, we on our side. I am publicly calling for such a thing. Come and sit down, man. Look. Show that political maturity. But the PPP is not prepared to show that kind of political maturity. And so we have to force them in that direction. They're going to come and they're going to give a cash transfer closer to local government election because they're hoping to get political benefits from it. That's not governance. That's not governance. That is bad, bad business. That is taking advantage of people. That is making a fool of the citizenry. But I want to say something here tonight. And I want you all to hear me. Whenever they give anything by way of cash transfer from now, you all have to make it known to them that they only give it because the APNU decide to go on the road, firstly in a symbolic manner, and maybe later on, if they don't shift to move from symbolism to a more full-throttled street activity. When you're in opposition, you don't have a direct hand in spending money, but you do have an indirect hand. And that indirect hand has to be strengthened by our people. I commend to you Frederick Douglass. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and never will. Whether it's a democratic government or a dictatorship, whether it's a legitimate government or illegitimate government, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and never will. When A. Philip Randolph went to FDR and asked for more inclusion for African Americans, more contracts to go, more jobs for union workers, FDR tell him, go make me do it. Go make me do it. Go make me do it. And A. Philip Randolph, he was the president of the Black Workers Union, the Pullman Porters, threatened the March on Washington. That's where the idea for the March on Washington came from. This is in the 40s, early 40s, A. Philip Randolph. Thank God A. Philip Randolph lived long enough to be one of the chief organizers of the March on Washington in 1963. And it was out of the March on Washington in 1963 that came the Voting Rights Act of 65 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Go make me do it. Power concedes nothing without a demand. I hear that there are some people who are saying, well, you have to cooperate with the government. Well, yes. You all know here, there is a vendor's problem in my village in Buxton, just in front where I live. Some of the vendors are there. They approach me and to say the minister is not doing right by them. I called the minister. He didn't return my call immediately, but he did eventually when I came on this program and said, I called him, he hasn't returned my call. The next morning he called. We had a short conversation. We began to talk. He hasn't called me back. But I understand that he's putting pressure on the NDC to try to get me out of representing people, because he said, I represent people, the thing coming political. Well, it has to be political. I am a member of parliament. These people come to me. They are my constituency. And here is an opportunity for the minister to work along with me As I said, for let us sit down with these people and come to an amicable solution. I didn't go to him and say, this is what you must do. He hasn't gotten back to me. So those of you who are saying that we have to work along with the government, we are putting them to the test. We would like to work along with them. But this is a government that sees things only in partisan terms. That if I work out with David Hines a solution to the problem, it will show that David Hines was able to bring a solution for his people. And so what? So what? You, the minister, on behalf of his party, David Hines on behalf of his party and his coalition, would share. That is political maturity. Both sides will say, we work together to bring a solution to these people. That is my mentality. But that is not the mentality of the PPP, unfortunately. And I still urge them that should be their mentality. It's easy for them, David Hines is a racist. David Hines causing trouble. David Hines want confrontation on the road. But it's difficult for them to say that David Hines used his official channel to sit down officially with the government and other stakeholders, the people there, the vendors, the NDC, and let us all sit down and solve this problem for our people. That is the model. That is part of our model. I talk about the three things: representation, legislation, and oversight. Representation is big. That is what you call representation. And I am open to that. That is part of my model. That is part of our model in the APNU. But we have to have a partner that is willing to work with us. But think about glory, what glory will go to the APNU and what political points. No, glory will come to me, given where I come from. Given the poverty that I was born in, I have more than enough glory. Often people ask me if I believe in God, and I said, I'm not getting into that argument. What I do know is God believes in me. Because God has been good to people like me. So there's no personal glory in this to me. Practically, yes. Our people will see that we are working on their behalf, and we have to get some glory for that. But the government will get glory too, to see that the government is behaving not like children, but like adults. I'm still waiting on Mr. Reverend to call me and said, a month ago you called me and we didn't get to finish this conversation. Be an adult. That is what governance is about. And so we are navigating this scenario. We are holding the government accountable, as they say, but we also want to work with the government to get things done for people. Our people should not wait until an election in 5 years until we get power to get something for them. Ultimately, the majority of what we'll get for them, we'll have to wait for that. But there's some things that can be done before that. But I'm saying to our supporters, Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. We have to demand. We have to demand. Some people are worried about whether there was 100 people out there, or 120, or 69, or 80. If it were one person My elder, Kwayana, 1964, went on a fast, sit down in front of the government office. He alone. Oh, Kwayana only had one person himself. But that one person made a difference. And he did it many times. Fasting and demonstrating he alone. It's not just the numbers. It's the symbolism and the impact. The PPP is in government. They hold the key to the purse strings. But we hold the key to power. We the people. We hold the key to power, absolute power, ultimate power. We hold the key to it. It is very clear the direction in which they're taking this country. And we have to make very clear that it will not be business as usual. It will not be business. And we are starting with the cash transfer. It's only a start. We are saying, keep your promise. We are saying, the money is not your own. We are saying, give it as a one-stop, one-off thing, and make sure you give it to everybody. Bring in more people. Not exclude people. And once we finish with the second one off, let us go to the National Assembly and let us talk about how we will do this thing in a constructive way. I don't want our people to be begging every Christmas or every when you're giving me a cash grant. I don't want that. I don't want our people to believe that government coming and giving a cash grant every Christmas is the way to go. No, that's not the way to go. The way to go is to say this patrimony from this windfall, here is a percentage of it for people to make their own decisions and how they will spend it. That's what ultimately we want. We're not going to break the back of poverty unless we do this thing in a structured way. $500,000 for a household, $1 million for a household. It will make a big difference. It will give our people a good Christmas. But it would also help for them to do up the bottom of the house. They get some concrete thing there now, but they can finish it. So that upstairs that is congested, part of the family can now move downstairs in the house. So finish the downstairs. If you were to give them 500,000 or $1 million, they're able to do that. And that will go a long way towards helping that family to beat poverty. You scrunt some people. Get the money to pay them on the house lot. But you can't put a house on it yet. You can't put down the foundation. You give them $500,000 so they're able to put on a foundation. They're moving towards their own house. Me move out of my mama chamber, me go in my own chamber. Me stop piss me mama po, me piss me own po. Are we quick song? Our folk has an understanding. Me move out of me mama chamber, me go me own chamber. Me stop piss me mama po, me piss me own po. I pour them in posy. Folk wisdom. And this is what cash transfers should do to help our people to become more independent. You live in the fastest growing economy in the world, and we still talk about donkey cart business and so on. My comrade Takumo Konsi always remind me that we got to begin to dream big, because it's big money the country get. And we mustn't think about taking people out of full poverty to 3/4 poverty. Takuma is saying that we have to take people out of poverty totally. And that is our aim. That is our aim. So understand what we are doing with this cash transfer. We are in solidarity with our people who saying they want the money to get a good Christmas. And we are showing solidarity with them because they have a legitimate case. Because the government promised it. Because the people need it. The cost of living is high. But we're saying when you finish with that, we got to talk now about using the cash transfer, not to give people a good Christmas, but to ensure that people come out of poverty and are living as first-class economic citizens. First-class economic citizens. That's what we're doing. And we can't let up. We are not going to let up. It's difficult to live in Guyana. People tell me, well, it's difficult to live anywhere in the world. That's true. But we are in Guyana. They're telling us about the fastest growing economy in the world. Look at all the fairy lights they're putting up around the place for Christmas. Take some of the fairy light money and put some light in the life of people for Christmas. What are your priorities, Mr. Government? I can tell you what our priorities are. We are in solidarity with our people, and we want our people to be in solidarity with us. It's a hard road to travel and a rough way to go. Jimmy Cliff, it's a hard road to travel. He went on to say, many rivers to cross, but I can't seem to find my way over. Part of our objective, my generation, that sleep in jail cells, that get locked up for 3 years, 4 years. We want our people to get over the river. That's what we want. And we've got to fight for it, and you all got to fight with me. You all got to fight with us. It's a hard road to travel. It's a rough way. It's a hard road. We know that. Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing without a demand. I don't get into party story and so on, but 3 months on, let us stop the backbiting. All the APNU affiliated political parties including those who broke away. All of us, it's a big body blow from the election. And it has caused some consternation. It has caused some ripples, more ripples. But at the end of the day, we got to work together. One of the lessons that I've learned here at this election is that if you believe that engagement in politics is first and foremost about the political rewards you will get, it could immobilize you. Because when the rewards are not what are expected, as in this case, then you have less to share around. And that causes ripples, whether people want to admit it or not. We have to do a politics of commitment and not just rewards. Rewards is a must. You must have rewards. People in politics, you know, personal rewards, political rewards, and I am not poo-pooing those things. But I'm saying attached to that, it has to be a politics of commitment. That when the rewards are not enough, it's your commitment that kicks in. It's your commitment that kicks in. We in the Working People's Alliance got one seat, one parliamentary seat, not a single regional seat. All we got out of the election is one seat. But we are beaten and bloodied and there's little to go around. And so there's no room for us to quarrel for more. Use, and that's what we are doing, to use the one that we are doing, that we are given, to use that one to do our work that we are committed to. When people become disappointed, as they must, when the rewards are not there so that everybody can get a piece, and you become disappointed, it immobilizes you. It immobilizes you. I've seen good activists become so immobilized by the lack of resources to share around. Good activists. Some young man met me a couple of weeks ago and said, Dr. Hines, I never realized that you were never parliamentarian. Young boy, in his 20s. He said he just assumed that I had been a parliamentarian before. I said, no. And I said, I only realize it now that you're telling me, because our politics is not a politics of just being in parliament. Being in parliament is just another dimension. But we've been doing this work 50 years, 60 years. And we have to continue to do it. We are humans, and so, you know, people are saying, and the PPP and others are playing on the minds of our people. There's a mind game with both our leaders and our followers. Because somehow they think that the African mind is so fickle that we are easily broken. And this is the time we have to man up, steel up, stand up. Tomorrow night, Dr. Henry Jeffrey is going to be here. And we're going to make it through the week. It's a hard road to travel. A rough way to go. Many rivers to cross, but I can't seem to find my way over. Sometimes I think about committing some dreadful crime. But only my will keeps me going on. I'd rather be a free man in the grave than to be a slave. Brother Jimmy Cliff, I'd rather be a free man in the grave than to be a slave. Love is my creed. Love and resistance. Sometimes you're called upon to be everything to everyone. But we got to do it. Fear not. Fear not. Sometimes we do things that we think are crazy. Sometimes we do crazy things. I heard Ruel Johnson the other day said 80% of Guyanese voted for 2 Muslim men. And I know where he's going with that. That is a fact. 80% voted for 2 Muslim men. And where Ruel is going to say the Hindus in the PPP vote outside of their religious group and they vote for Muslim. And African people vote outside of their racial group and voted for a Muslim, or outside of their Christian group and voted for me. I know where he's going with that sleight of hand argument. He's trying to say, don't worry with Heinz and them who's saying that the PPP people voted for their race. No, they didn't. They're mostly Hindus and they vote for Muslim. Ruel is not a dunce, you know. Ruel may make himself a fool in his propaganda work for the PPP, but he's not a fool. He's not a fool. I see where he's going, but I'm going to say to you, Ruel, Indian people in Guyana politically don't act based on religion. They've never done so. They've never voted based on religion. When it comes to voting, Indian Muslims, Indian Christians, and Indian Hindus vote as Indians. And all that the Hindus do is they dug their hand in the Hindu bucket and dab it as orphan face and say, we Hinduize you. Story done. And all that some of the African people do is put their hand in the tar bucket and dab it, put acid in face and say, we blacken you. That's all that happened, Ruel. I know you're trying to think that there's some profundity in your argument. It's a good observation. But there's nothing profound about where you're going with that. Indian people have always voted as Indians. Not as Hindus, not as Christian, not as Muslim. They've always voted as Indian, and that's what they did. And African people have never voted as Christians. They vote as black people. So it's not a case where some Christians voted for a Muslim. No, Ruel. You gotta come better than that, boy. You gotta come better than that. But it's a good observation. And I can see Ruel whispering to Jack Dio and them saying, I get an argument for David Hines and them. David Hines is engaged in sophistry. You know, he's a bright boy, good writer, and so on. And so he's trying to give the PPP some talking point. You gotta come better, Ruel. You either underestimate those on our side, or you think you super smart more than us. You're a super smart guy. You know, I give Jack his jacket. He's a very thoughtful person. Certainly, he's more thoughtful than others like him who have gone over to the PPP. You know, um, he's perhaps the most thoughtful of them, and that is why sometimes when he make himself a little fool, you all just get vexed with him. Because basically you're saying, man, Roel, man, you know better than that, man. Don't think. Right? I notice you all beat up on Dr. Ralph. He lose 14 seats in St. Vincent. And certainly the opposition people remind him, take your licks like a boss. I have a soft spot for Ralph, eh? Because I come up under the ideological tutelage of Ralph Gonzalez and others who belong to the radical tradition in Caribbean politics and who have to give people like myself an ideological space in which to construct our politics. And I'm eternally grateful to Ralph Gonzalez and others like him. And so I think is removal from office is a blow to progressive and radical politics in the Caribbean. I'm a Caribbean man also. And in that sense, I miss Ralph. But Ralph overplayed by putting his mouth in Guyanese politics and in other parts of the Caribbean. It's not only Guyana. He was saying that he was going to be on the plane to be in the last rally with Philip Pierre in St. Lucia. Well, he couldn't be on the plane for that because he lost big. I really thought Ralph overplayed by inserting himself in Guyanese politics in a certain way. He's smart enough to know that our politics is politically divided, not just on ideology, because Ralph is an ideological man, but we are divided ethnically. If it were just ideology, you know, he might have got off. But he inserted himself in an ethnic division. And so he has incurred the wrath of black people in Guyana. For the first time, black people in Guyana were pointing out to me, Ralph is a Portuguese. I have to confess that I know Ralph is Portuguese, but for me, Ralph was all radical progressive tradition. But once he inserts himself in an ethnic environment in Guyana, black people start pointing out to me that times he's a Portuguese. And that is what he found himself in. Because there's a way in which sometimes you have to pull back. And Ralph didn't pull back. You support the PPP ideologically, that's fine. That's fine. But you have to understand that our problem in Guyana is not just political. And so Ralph getting beat up badly, and I sympathize with him. But I think our Caribbean politics is poorer because Ralph Gonzalez has exited center stage. I would rather a Ralph Gonzalez center stage in Caribbean politics than him not being center stage. But you get your licks, take it like a man, Ralph. I think he will regret ever making that comment. You know, you have to understand politics in a certain way. And Ralph, I think, did, but that's when you're in office so long, you lose sense, you lose your compass, and I think that's what happened to Ralph in the last couple of years. He's lost his compass. Got himself in a tangle with Venezuela and Guyana, trying to dodge his way and end up going with Venezuela over Guyana. Choosing ideology over real politics. Venezuela taking three-quarter U sister territory. You just tell the PPP they did well, tell Granger he must take it lick like a man. And then the same people you congratulate for winning, you're willing to sell them out to Venezuela. So Ralph lost his compass. You know, that being in that government for all them 20 odd years, I think took a toll on the brother. I think took a toll on him. That is when man shall not live by bread alone. He became intoxicated with formal power and lost his compass. He, more than anybody else in St. Vincent, should understand the complexity of Guyanese politics and not to have inserted himself in that way. And that's why he's getting beaten up. I don't beat you up in that way because, like I said, my generation is indebted to the Ralph Gonzalez of this world. And I would rather see Ralph at center stage than off the stage. But there we go. Congratulations to Godwin Friday and the NDC. You know, we'll see how different they're going to be from the Labour government. Philip Pierre in St. Lucia Labour Party, they have come back to power. The UWP is reduced to 1 seat again. But they had 2 seats the last time. I think it's 1 seat again now. Are we seeing a trend? But what is worrying in both St. Vincent, St. Lucia, is the high number of people that stayed away. High number of people that stayed away. That's, and it continues. The same thing in Guyana, the same thing there, the same thing in Jamaica. They had their elections a couple of months ago. We are seeing at least 1/3 of our people staying away from elections. That is frightening, and it's been going on for a while. The other thing is the first past the post system, which some people want in Guyana. Ralph got 42% of the popular vote and only had 1 seat. That's not fair. 42% of the popular vote, but got 1 seat. The last time around, he got 49% of the popular vote and win the election against the party that had 51%. Not fair. Not fair. So Ralph benefited from it in the last election, and now he got 42% of the vote and 1 seat. 1 out of 15. That's 6%, 6 point something percent. 42% of the vote and 6% of the seats. Can't be fair. In St. Lucia, the Labour Party got 55% of the vote and got 14 seats. The opposition, I think, got about 38%, 1 seat. So the first past the post system has its defects. And a lot of people calling for it in Guyana. We have a hybrid system in Guyana. Represent first past the post and proportional representation. But it's more proportional representation than first past the post. Yes, somebody's telling me Trinidad also. I hear people wildly talk about how the UNC get the whole set. 105,000 PNM supporters stayed away. That's 105,000 votes less than they got at the last election. 105,000 less vote than they got at the last election. The PNM. In Guyana, the APNU got 142,000 less. Trinidad, 105,000 less. In Guyana, 142,000 less. In Trinidad, there was no Azzuddin Mohammed. So the Trinidadian people stay home, the PNM supporters. In Guyana, there was Azzuddin Mohammed. Half of them stay home and half of them vote for Mohammed. And you all got to face facts. Don't worry, David Hines. He too thing on the racial thing. He and Ogunson, them want revolution, they want thing. the majority of those people who vote for black people who vote for Azadin, they vote for him because he's a Don. He's a gangster. The PPP telling you all, we on our side, don't be gangsters. Don't go hard at the PPP. That's what the PPP telling us. And our people vote for Azadin because he's a gangster. He's a Don. And basically we're telling we, you all ain't gangsters and Dons. You are the Sunday school boys and girls. You all better put it in your head what's happening here. David Hines make the APNU last because he pushing an extreme politics and think black people vote for an extremism that can come close to me. And you hear what they're saying? No matter what they do, they can't extradite Mohammed. Now they're putting spiritual, mystic powers on Azadin. You all better learn. I go to sleep at night knowing that I hit the right chord. I wish that chord could have resonated more. The PNC must come back from the extremism of Rickford Burke and David Hines and extremism. Look at Mohammed and look the extremism that the PPP is going. You watch them at Lenora Market, they're going to start shoot up Matty just now. Watch. Extremism? You all look and see where the extremism is. Azadin win because of extremism. I'm a Don. I get gunmen following me. I'm beating the system. I know the system. And our people voted for that. Rightly or wrongly. But all David Hines saying black is beautiful. Oh, he's too extreme. You all better learn politics in this country. And Azadin extremism is bringing out the PPP extremism. Watch them at the market. Watch them in front of the Amerindian hostel. They're going to pull gun on one another just now. What's good? Mark my word. You all talking about extremism? You're talking about extremism? We are Sunday school boys. We are Sunday school boys. They accuse Azadin of all kind of bad thing. And other people lifting you up in the air. I ain't saying the right. But why you all are telling me and Rick Ford and Mark and Ogun say that we are extremists? we them thing you all accusing as they know you all ever accused with them thing. Yeah? That is extremism. And extremism brings out extremism. You see them big, strong Indian man, I think they're well armed. And they go pow pow just now. I hope black people don't get caught in the crossfire. I hope so. Watch how you're moving, Mr. African. Watch how you're moving. That's extremism what you all see at Lenora. That's extremism what you all see in front of the Amerindian hostel. That's extremism. Me telling black people that they must look after their interests and stick together when you're being attacked. Calling that extremism a set of intellectual dummies. What do they know of extremism? Only extremism knows. Watch the ride. They don't use the term now, and I like the one in the 90s, watch the ride. So a little outdated, watch the ride. Watch the ride. The dynamics and the contradictions are playing themselves out. Watch the ride. One cannot deny that win votes. When it suits them on the other side, my friend Freddie Kissoon, my erstwhile friend, why are they talking? Why the EU people didn't put in their report that win bought votes? Oh, Freddie, you know win by votes? Who you think they copy it from? You vexed with the EU because the EU didn't say win by vote. They only said PPP by votes. Oh, you know win by votes? But just 2 days ago, you were saying the PNC is destroyed. Now you're saying the PNC is destroyed because win by the votes. When it suits you, the PNC is destroyed. When it don't suit you, win by votes. Well, win learn to buy votes from the PPP. And if the EU people said the PPP by votes and they didn't say win by votes, they're admitting it's only the APNU didn't buy vote. And if the EU say it, that win by votes, thank you, Freddie, for saying it. But then follow up by saying the PNC and the APNU were not decimated. We were defeated, but not decimated. I'm not saying all of Win's vote were bought. I think some people legitimately voted for Win. I think people saw Win, some people saw Win as a means to an end. And you have to look at all the dimensions of the politics. Not just one dimension. Whether we like it or not, Win is here. Whether they're here to stay, I don't know. But they're here. And I said on my position in this program, I ain't fighting for Win. I'm not fighting for Win. I'm not fighting for Mohammed. I'm fighting for what is right and what is just. And if Mohammed happened to be in the mix of that, then yes, in an indirect way, I'm fighting for him. But Mohammed doesn't need me. Mohammed would not fight for me. Mohammed never one day came out and said they're crucifying David Hines wrongfully. Never. But insofar as I'm fighting for the rule of law, and Mohammed is a victim of the misrule of law, then, of course, I help in Mohammed. Politics has to be seen at various levels. Although Mohammed won't fight for me, that don't mean I'm going to be totally mean to Mohammed. No. I shook Mohammed hand in Parliament. And if I see you again, I'm going to shake your hand. But I'm saying we have to understand the complexity of the situation. At a certain level, Mohammed represents a promise. At a certain level, the Mohammed phenomenon represents a promise. But within that promise is a disintegration that may not help us in the long run. We have to see the Win thing. We in the WPA, I'm saying this, when we confronted the Burnham regime in the 1970s and the 1980s, there was a promise there. But locked up in that promise was a disintegration of the African Guyanese community at the political level. There are some people who would not forgive us to this day. Some black people who never forgive us because they said we have to bring down a black government. Of course, we weren't trying to bring down a black government. We were trying to bring down what we called at the time an authoritarian government. But some black people have not forgiven us. And maybe the understanding was that Azedin would bring down the PPP government. Well, he didn't. And as a result of that, it caused more problems in the society than solutions. But when I watch them chaps at Ledore, they're going to lick shot Matty just now. They lick shot Matty just now. It's all matter time. Only a matter time. And I think it's black people going to get caught in the crossfire. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. I hope it don't get to that. And I'm saying that my thoughts here tonight may not be very popular. People may think that I am too extreme. I'm not taking the wind thing lightly. The wind development is a serious development. And the good of it is that it has potential for good. The bad of it is that we are in an environment that kills potential for good. That kills potential for good. What this has come down to, unfortunately, is a personal duel between Muhammad and his erstwhile friends. It should not be that, because a social phenomenon, a political phenomenon, should mean more than that. And I think those people who voted for Win didn't vote for a conflict between Win and PPP. They voted because they thought Win, they thought Muhammad would open a door to a better politics. Unfortunately, what we are seeing is the PPP is determined to shut that door. And I don't think Win knows how to navigate that situation. Clearly, the PPP is saying two Daddy Crapo cannot exist in the same space. They're saying that very plainly. Very plainly. Watch the ride. Watch the ride. Some people will disagree with me. I know some of the Win people will disagree with me and so on and so on. But I'm calling it as I'm seeing it now. You know, 3 months from now, 4 months by now, I may change my mind. But for now, the potential of Win, the emergence of Win for a better politics is being damaged by the response of the PPP to Muhammad. And that response to Muhammad is engendered by badness in government. Badness. When two Daddy Crapo used to be in the same wall, all was good. Now the whole get too big and turbulent for two Daddy Crapo. I know some of you all say, well, you know, they're doing Win bad, they're doing Muhammad bad, and maybe they are. You know, maybe they are. In many cases, in a lot of cases, they are. They're using the misrule of law against him and so on. But the environment of the misrule of law has long been abroad in Guyana. They are co-architects of the misrule of law. I'm saying it plain and blunt. The PPP and Muhammad, they are co-architects of the misrule of law. Unfortunate for Muhammad, though, he's a victim of what he helped to create. Let me talk truth. Unfortunately, what you all do at a personal level and at the political level is your business. But I'm just laying out the scenario because I think we're not laying out the scenario right. There is something legitimate in the evolution of politics at the electoral level in the Wynne phenomenon. You can't dismiss it. A man come and he get 16 seats. You can't dismiss that. And those of us on our side who dismiss that, we are making an error. But we also, when we ignore the larger picture, we are also making a mistake. And it must be that one that can slow the other. Not because he's an architect, co-architect of the problem. It means that he got a right to be beaten up and bloodied. That's not what David Hines is saying. But I'm saying don't ignore it. Do not ignore it. Do not ignore that the man got 16 seats. But also don't ignore that this man is a co-architect of what he is a victim of. The old time Marxists say the dialectics. What conclusion you come to has to come out of the two scenarios. Don't tell me about one and ignore the other. Don't tell me the man, the co-author and co-construct the criminal state. Don't just tell me that and don't tell me, but the man legitimately gets 16 seats. Also, don't tell me that the man whipped up some emotions in people that took them to the point where they voted for him. Don't tell me just that and ignore that he's a co-architect of what he and by extension the rest of us have to deal with in this criminalized state. The scenarios have to be put out there. And out of the scenario, we do our analysis and arrive at a conclusion. I will not vote against the APNU. Cooperating with Wynne if it benefits the country. I will have a problem in voting to cooperate with Wynne to benefit Mohammed. That I would have a problem with. I would vote for cooperation with Wynne to benefit Guyana. And if Azadin benefits as a result of that personally, all is well. But I'm starting with a cooperation with Wynne to defend Mohammed first and hope that in defense of Mohammed as an individual, the country will benefit. No, I start in the other way around. If I must cooperate with Wynne, it's to benefit the country. And if Mohammed benefits as an individual because of that, God is good. I know you all been asking me a long time to expound on the Mohammed thing, and I'm very clear. As I said recently, my position on the Mohammed impasse is evolving. Because we have seen the scenario before. What we have not seen is the magnitude of the scenario. And we have to deal with the magnitude. Ultimately, the enemy, for me, the ultimate political enemy in this country is the PPP. Whether Wynne is a political enemy, I don't know yet, because Wynne has not really articulated a philosophical political position. So I really can't make a judgment on Wynne. What I do know is that the PPP, by its policies, by its attitude, by its praxis, is taking this country backward. And so therefore, my enemy, my political enemy is the PPP, not Wynne. It's a lot to digest and bring together. But I don't know where Wynne stands. I'm waiting to see Win articulate where it's going. I do know that the presence of Win has helped the PPP rather than the APNU. It's the presence of Win that has now given the PPP control of Region 4. We hear Minister Malik Chan say she can't break the tie in Region 10. What does that tell us? Is the PPP going to work out a deal with Win? Or even if they don't work out the deal with Win, will they vote in a way to give Win control of Region 10? Or will they vote in a way to give APNU the control of Region 10? However they vote, they have the last say. And it is the fracturing of the African vote that has caused that. It has diminished our bargaining power. Because we are fractured of the way in which our people voted. Fractured. So you have a fractured constituency fighting against a cohesive constituency. The fracturing makes sense. If Win and the APNU were ideologically and politically on the same page, as happened with the AFC and the APNU in 2015 and 2020. So as things stands now, in the first 3 months after the election, the emergence of the Win phenomenon has not brought positive dividends for opposition politics. Can it later? We shall see. But we are dealing with the politics that we have dealt with before at a low level, but not at the level that we are here. Nandalal said it will cause Guyana problems if the fugitive becomes the opposition leader. That's a classic argument of the status quo. Nandalal didn't invent that argument. He's basically stating the status quo argument that if you have someone who's tied up in the law and they are voted into an official position, it has consequences for the legitimacy of the government and the legitimacy of the country. It's a classical argument, the argument of the status quo. Marion Barry was set up when he was mayor, and they catch him smoking crack in a hotel room. And as a result of that, the US Congress took over a lot of the powers of the city government. Marion Barry went to jail, and by going to jail, he was forced to relinquish his seat. He came back out of jail and win back a seat on the village the city council. So I'm saying that Nandlal's argument is not whether you agree with it or not. It's a status quo argument. And I'm giving the Marion Barry case. He was legitimately elected by the people. They catch him, set him up, and they catch him smoking crack. Send him to jail. So if you go to jail, you can't be in office. And then when he served his time, busload of black people. Say you all may think he's a convict, we don't think he is. And they went up to the jail, they bring him back, he run for city council and win his city council seat back. So Nandlal is using that kind of argument. Whether the argument holds or not, I don't know. I don't know. The counter argument to that is that the man has not been convicted of any crime, and so he's presumed innocent until found guilty. So both arguments, one is the status quo argument, one is the anti-status quo argument. One is grounded in political realism, and the other one is grounded in political moralism. Take your pick. Take your pick. I wanted to break it down for our people because I've heard so many people get tangled on this issue. I understand. It's not an issue that has a clear-cut thing. Nonetheless, the PPP argument is grounded in realism, political realism. The other argument that you presume innocent until found guilty, regardless of the impact on the politics, is grounded in political moralism. That the moral, political moralism says a man is considered innocent until found guilty, sign in the man and they become opposition leader. The other thing is saying, no, if you do that, you put in a fugitive, and that is going to delegitimize the government. Well, the government delegitimized already, at least by half the population. So, that could be an argument. But I don't want black people to be dunces politically. And that's why I'm laying it out for you all, that whatever decision you all make, you all must make it knowing the scenario, not ignoring the scenario. I didn't intend to go so far tonight, but we got a late start because the technology tangled up and so on. But I think we got enough in. I know I've been a bad boy. I've taken more time. A skulk for about 7 days, week and a half and so on. And that happens sometime. I notice the conversation is going on here on the thing. My friend Marcy Darcet, one of my favorite persons, one of our hardest working council member, NDC council member in the South Buxton area. It's good to see you, Marcy, and younger people like yourself give older people like me a little more hope to stick around, a little bit longer. But as Bob Marley said, I don't want my people to be contrary. I don't want my people to be tricked by mercenaries. I'm saying X is mercenary and Y is mercenary, but I don't want my people to be tricked. And we got to put it late out there. Note, I have not taken a position as such. I just tell you plainly that I'm fighting for the rule of law. And if the rule of law prevails and Azadin benefits from it, more power. God is good. But I don't start by fighting for Azadin and hope that the rule of law benefits. No. I ain't doing that. I start in the other way around. And I hope this country comes to a point where it is able to see the link and the linkages. I didn't see black people fight for the rule of law when Ogunse was shackled. Or Indian people for that matter, or Amerindian people for that matter. Or when Kidaki was shackled because somebody says something out of turn on the program. I didn't see black people. I'm using, maybe the politics did not gel at the time for them to act in a certain way. But you all have to answer the question. But if you all are prepared to die for the human rights of an Indian brother under attack, you all must equally be prepared to die for an African brother under attack. And if you all do not learn that in a country like Guyana, then you all are not moving out of the plantation. I think it's a superior mind, collective mind, a superior collective mind in an ethnic environment can put their belly out for somebody of another ethnic group. I don't see it as backwardness. I see it as a supreme political act. But if that supreme political act is not replicated when your African brother is attacked for less, then we have to watch ourselves in the mirror as an African people and asking, are we egalitarian enough? Are we into self-hate? It's okay. Jump up for Azadin if you think that he's being attacked. But why you didn't jump up for Ogunse? Why you didn't jump up for Kidaki? I'm talking to you, Mr. African. I'm talking to you, Miss African. And I've earned the right to talk to you all. Watch yourself, black man. Watch yourself, black woman. A good act does not always lead to a good outcome.